Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Northern Lights Canadian Women in Tech and Business, where we shine a spotlight on trailblazing women who are shaping the future of business and innovation in Canada. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Kathleen Taylor, or Katie, as many know her. Katie is one of Canada's most accomplished business leaders, best known for her groundbreaking role as the first woman to chair the board of RBC, the largest bank in Canada and one of the largest in the world. Her career has spanned leadership in the hospitality industry as CEO of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, corporate governance roles at some of the country's most respected institutions, and deep involvement in advancing education and healthcare. Most recently, Katie was named Ivy Business Leader of the Year for 2025, a recognition of her visionary leadership and lasting impact on Canadian business. Katie's journey from breaking barriers in boardrooms to championing innovation and mentorship has inspired countless women and continues to redefine what leadership looks like in Canada. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
My great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, let's jump right into the first question, which is you were the first woman to chair the board of RBC. Can you share what that milestone meant to you personally and professionally?
Well, yes, this was a very big milestone in my career. I was appointed to the board in August or appointed as chair, sorry, in August of 2013. Now, by that point, I had been on the board for 12 years. I'd served on a number of board committees, so I was well known to my colleagues and to folks at the bank. But obviously, it's a great honor to be asked by your peers to lead a group of peers. I always say that peer recognition is one of the highest forms of endorsement of your work, your leadership style, your ethics, your integrity. And there's no question that being chosen as the chair of RBC was a capstone for all of those reasons. And as you pointed out, a very large organization, very complex organization, multi-regional organization. So a lot to do, and I got to work with fantastic colleagues, and of course, with an extraordinary, talented CEO in Dave McKay.
That's really amazing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. Looking back at your time as CEO of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, what leadership lessons have stayed with you throughout your career?
Oh, well, there's probably too many to list for today's podcast, but I'll pick out a few that I would say rise to the most important level. The first would be to always show up as your authentic self. People really do gravitate to leaders who are being their own way, their own manner, no airs, no pretenses. I grew up in Oshawa in the 1960s and early 70s, a time when the town was quite a blue collar town. So we didn't have any airs about us. We were from modest upbringings. We didn't know any wealthy individuals. So obviously, working at a place like Four Seasons was a huge eye-opening experience for me. A global company operating at the highest levels of luxury hospitality. But my own normal kind of authentic style was something that I knew how to utilize for leadership purposes. I was comfortable in it. I wasn't trying to be someone that I wasn't. I knew from a young age that I was going to be a lifelong learner. So adapting to and learning new things, new places, new people was something that I continue to enjoy to this day. But always doing it with my authentic self was part, I think, of the compass that guided me. I'd say the other thing was also to make sure in a career, at any stage in a career, whether you're early stage, you're in the senior executive ranks, or back to your previous question, you're actually being considered to be the chair of a board, is always to set yourself up to take very solid calculated risk. What do I mean by that? These are the kinds of risks where you know it's a big step, you know it's going to be a big challenge, you know it could be difficult, but ultimately you know you're ready. You're ready for the learning, you're ready for the hard work, you're ready to put the time and energy into it because it's really, really important to you. And oftentimes we see things in front of us, and the science on this is very clear for women that we often underestimate our own state of readiness as compared to our male colleagues. And I always encourage women to say, look, take that next role, figure out how to be a great leader in it, and then go on to be a great leader in it.
Hmm.
Don't be worrying about the last part before you've even done the first part.
Hmm.
And then I think the third thing I would say goes a little bit to culture. I grew up in an Irish Catholic household. Was always taught the golden rule. When I got to Four Seasons, interestingly enough, the culture of Four Seasons, cultural statement of Four Seasons, is the golden rule to treat others the way you would want to be treated if you were them.
Hmm.
And it drove the way we managed the business. We drove the way we hired, developed, and promoted our top talent. It drove the way we communicated with one or treated one another, and of course, in turn, treated our guests. And so I think for leaders of all stripes, that idea that you must always be treating everyone around you with dignity and respect is so very important, and is a huge it's rocket fuel for relationships and for others. If you're a leader, you know you're a great leader if people are following you, and it's a lot easier to follow someone who leads by example than who leads on the power of position.
Hmm. Definitely. Thank you so much for touching on that, Katie. I think our listeners would be really curious to hear what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in traditionally male-dominated industries, and how did you navigate them?
Well, you're absolutely right. The hospitality industry, when I arrived, was a predominantly male-dominated industry at the top, the leadership levels. Obviously, in hospitality and tourism, thousands and thousands, I would argue millions across the world of the jobs are occupied by women, but not in the most senior ranks. It's something that we've worked hard to change over my career. It's something we're continuing to work hard to change, but it is a difficult proposition. So I was a little bit of a purple squirrel in the overall scheme of what I was trying to get done. I arrived at Four Seasons in my very early 30s, a young woman who was a lot younger as well than my male compatriots. But I had aspirations to make a difference in my life and to make a difference in my career. And so I set out to figure out what was the best possible way to do that. First, I would say, was really getting to know my male colleagues extremely well. This takes time, it takes effort. It isn't all about the work you're asked to do, it's often about the conversations you're having informally, the time you spend with people when they've got an issue. But getting to know my male colleagues and understand what made them tick was very important. I often joke that one of the first things I did was also get to know their spouses and partners. And what I learned through that lens was that most of my male colleagues were partnered with or married to some very strong, powerful women. Some of them were business women, some of them were artists, some of them were homemakers. They really ran the full spectrum of what you might think of in the category of wives of business colleagues. But what my takeaway was, and it was very important, was that all of these men had chosen to partner with true partners. They actually had chosen these women, married them. Obviously, the women chose them too,
Mhm.
but they had real partnerships in their families and real decision making partnerships. And so I figured, and it sounds sort of funny, but if they could live 365 days a year with their strong female partners, then they could put up with a little bit of me at the office. That bet turned out to be right. And all of my, I would say, mentors, sponsors, champions in my career at Four Seasons were men. And I thank them hugely for the opportunities that they gave me. Izzy Sharp, of course, the most important of those, the founder and CEO of the company. But ultimately, it was all of their goodwill and openness to receiving a personality and a drive like mine that allowed me to get done what I needed to get done.
Mhm. I really appreciate that insight into resilience. You've also led across such a wide range of industries, hospitality, finance, healthcare, and education. How do you adapt your leadership style across such different sectors?
Well, I'm not sure that my leadership style changes a huge amount sector by sector. What you do have to adapt to is the context, the different sets of colleagues, the different sets of business circumstances, the different sets of issues that each organization is facing. And back to my earlier comment about being a lifelong learner and really enjoying the learning journey as part of how I tackle challenges. That's probably where the greatest adaptation comes. And I always encourage people to take that learning curve on new assignments, whether they be in a different industry, in a different job, with a different company, whatever it could be, to take those very seriously and learn not only the what I will call the nuts and bolts of the business, the technical elements of it, but also focus on the cultural elements of it. The soft stuff in life is often the hard stuff. And as you move from sector to sector, you do find varying degrees and changes that you really have to be aware of, because doing something one way in a certain organization would be perfectly fine. Doing it that way in a different organization might be viewed askance. And so it's
Mhm.
really that deep learning and understanding, both on the what I will call the substantive and business side, as well as the cultural and people side.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that leads perfectly into my next question, which is, what do you believe makes for effective governance at the board level in today's rapidly changing business environment?
Well, I think there's a few things I would say about that. An old friend of mine, Stephen Jaroslawski, the founder of the Canadian Coalition for Good Governance, has always said that and I like to repeat it because I find it so powerful, that the three C's of a great director are: competence is your first one. You need to actually be qualified to do the job. Do you have to be from the industry? Do you have to know about the industry? Or do you have to work in the industry? No, but you have to be capable of learning all that and bringing some relevant experience to bear on that topic. The second C is curiosity. Are you a curious person? Are you that person who wants to get to the bottom of things? Are you a person who wants to learn more about the situation they find themselves in? Are you a solutions oriented person? That's a very important part of governing and overseeing an organization. And the third C is courage. And it, in many ways, is the most important, because no matter how smooth the water at any given time, rough waves will come to businesses, to organizations, whether they be in the for-profit sector, the not-for-profit sector.
Mhm.
And here, you have to be a person who's prepared to stand up for what's right, stick to your values, and have the courage and the commitment to speak out when that's required. So when you think about those things in the context of continued good governance in a rapidly changing world, obviously continuing to hone your own skill set, independent of whatever assignments you have, but also figuring out how to continue to learn. That changing landscape is also changing everything that's going on inside your business or inside your organization. And as a director, you have an obligation to keep up with that. While these are not full-time jobs, they do require a lot of commitment and a lot of time to make sure that you're ready for when new issues arise. And then,
Mhm.
of course, that courage piece, being ready to stand up and say what needs to be said, even if it's a little bit unpopular. Ask the tough question, even if it goes against the grain of the current conversation.
Mhm.
Often just helps to spark a much more intense and ultimately much richer dialogue around problem solving.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing those important points. And I want to take a moment to congratulate you on being named Ivy Business Leader of the Year for 2025. What does this recognition mean to you at this stage in your career?
Well, it's an unbelievable honor, very unexpected, as you can imagine. The list of people who have gone before me in this honor is really quite extraordinary. And to think that this group thought that I could be included with that team was pretty breathtaking. So I could not be more honored, and I'm just delighted to have the opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and congratulations again on all of your hard work. Looking ahead at the bigger picture, when you reflect on your legacy, what contributions do you hope you will have the most lasting impact?
Well, I think that on many fronts, you hope that you can leave the old expression, you can leave your campfires better than you found them. So I would like to think that after I've gone from somewhere, people remember me fondly. Partly because I'm a nice person, partly because I treated them well, but also partly because they thought that I did right by the organization, that I did the things that needed to be done and helped move the ball down the field, so to speak, for whatever the strategic direction of that place needed to be. I think the other element of it is I'd like to be thought of as a person who really tried to give back to people in the industry who need help and advice, to areas of philanthropy that I'm passionate about, to causes in the world, gender equity being a big part of where I spend my time. And you can do all of those things both formally as well as informally.
Mhm, mhm. That's wonderful to hear. And I just want to switch gears just a little bit here. You've often spoken about the importance of mentorship. What advice would you give to young women aspiring to leadership roles today?
Well, mentorship is exactly one of the informal channels I would say that leaders have to ensure that their legacies pay it forward and are long lasting. If you've been a leader, you have had experiences that most aspiring leaders have not yet had. They hope to have, but they just haven't had yet. And so when they're building their careers and moving through them, there are constant obstacles, questions, concerns, queries, things that are sometimes not that complicated, but can seem to be quite daunting in the moment. And I think that what I would say to young women who are aspiring to leadership roles, first of all, just do it. To take a page out of Nike, set out a plan for yourself. Oftentimes, when we think about careers, we move into them and then we sort of expect it to be like a wave that moves us through. And certain parts of careers are like that. You get a job, you get a little bit more scope, you get a promotion, and so on it goes. But I do think and I would encourage all young people, men and women, to take the job of managing their own careers seriously. I often use the phrase being the CEO of your own career. Managing your own career is one of your jobs. Oftentimes people will say, oh, well, my manager spoke. No, your manager is mostly worried about your manager's job. You need to be mostly worried about where your job's going to take you next. And yes, your manager will help develop you and help move you along, but you need to have a plan in your own head and a real program for taking action against that plan. So this takes time. It takes attention. And it takes a little bit of work. It's not something you can do every day, but in the grander scheme of things, I would say if you're aspiring to a leadership role, for sure have a plan. Second, I would say find mentors and sponsors. Find other like minded people, men or women, who are prepared to give you tough advice. I like to distinguish between mentors and sponsors. Mentors are the people who are prepared to tell you you have spinach in your teeth and toilet paper on your shoe. Those uncomfortable moments where maybe you didn't show up the way you'd hoped for, your mentor's there to give you advice on how to make it better the next time. You also need sponsors, though. These are people who are prepared to use their own personal capital on your behalf. to advocate for you, to sell you, to support you, and to literally lift you with their own might into some of your next chapters. And both mentors and sponsors were incredibly important in my journey, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't be for most aspiring young leaders today.
Mhm. That's such powerful advice for the next generation. And just thinking about the road ahead, where do you see the greatest opportunities for Canadian women in tech and in business and innovation in the next decade?
Sure. So I think the opportunities for women are growing rapidly, and I'm very delighted to see this occurring. The number of women in the CEO job is still stubbornly low, but we will start to make traction there as more and more women are founding their own businesses, are moving up the ranks in organizations that they've chosen to join. And I do think that there's great opportunity for women, particularly in the tech and innovation sector, which you touched on, because it is a very meritocratic. Um, meritocratic. No, I'm saying that word wrong. Let's edit that piece out.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the part about tech and innovation
Okay.
and the tech and innovation space that you mentioned earlier, I think is particularly right for the advancement of women. Women are getting education in these fields at a very, very rapid rate. They're well suited to this work. We need women's voices at the table as we start to adopt and implement all of these new technologies in ways that really have to speak to how they're going to impact people as we go. And I think women have a huge role to play in shaping the future of that industry as well as many others.
It's definitely exciting to think about that future. To wrap it up, I'd love to bring it back to you personally. What continues to inspire you to stay engaged and active in shaping Canada's business future?
Well, like many Canadians, I am very proud to be from this country. I am very grateful for the opportunities that Canada gave me. I mean, you think about the education I was able to get here that totally transformed my life. The organizations I've been able to be a part of that have essentially taken me to every corner of the globe in the work that I have done. So Canada has literally been my whole life, and ultimately has done extremely well by me. So when I think about the future of the country, I couldn't be more optimistic about what Canada has lying ahead for it. We have the most educated population on the planet. We have one of the most culturally diverse yet culturally cohesive countries in the world. And we have a business ethic and a personal ethic in this country that is very open and welcoming and values driven. And so when you put all of those things together, you can't help but imagine that the next stage of development for Canadian business is going to be bright, very, very bright. And so we should all make sure we have our sunglasses handy.
I love that answer. Katie, your vision, resilience, and commitment to opening doors for others have left such a lasting mark on Canadian business. We're so honored you could be here and share your story with us today.
Thank you so much, Berlin, for having me. It's been a great pleasure to chat with you today.
Of course. Thank you so much.